It's time for Real Talk with Iris, with your host, Iris Wright. The talk show dedicated to making our communities better, building relationships, networking, and supporting small businesses. Join us every week as we discuss new and creative ideas to improve our neighborhoods and communities. This is your chance to get motivated, inspired, and encouraged. So let's get set for another amazing episode of Real Talk with Iris with your host, Iris Wright.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm on here a little early today, and I want to share some things. We have our movement, her story, her power, and I had a hard time sleeping yesterday, guys. And I still tell you, even though we process our feelings differently, and I go through my healing journey, so everybody knows that I'm going through my healing journey, and this is not an overnight thing. This is, years in the making. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey. I watched some movies, which I don't know if this is healthy for me to be watching these type of movies. But I'm going to talk about the latest movie, the movie I watched yesterday or last night. And that movie was called Trial by Fire. Trial by Fire. So if you haven't watched it, really good movie. But I watched quite a few movies, and it ended up, about different scenarios and things that are going on. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the movie. I don't want to give it all out just in case you watch it, but I was very emotional through the whole movie. All right. And it brought back some things. It had some triggers for me, if that makes sense. And everybody knows, I want to start off that my name is Dr. Iris Wright, and I'm an injustice survivor. And a little bit about the movie. It was a guy, and he was in a relationship with this woman. And, it was kind of a lot of domestic violence, arguing, fighting, kind of. They had 3 kids together, but the house caught on fire. And the girlfriend was at work. He was home. He made it out of the house. He was trying to get the girls, but things got too bad. He hurried up and got out. He fought with that. But anyway, this happened. It's based on a true story in the state of Texas. And all 3 of his girls burned in the fire. He was innocent. The fire started from something that happened inside the house, but he was accused of setting his house on fire with his girls in it. And he was put on the death row. About the movie, some of the details that kind of brought triggers for me was his mental state at that time. Now, I want to say this. As I'm going through my emotional roller coaster, at this point, these are triggers for me. It takes me back. And even though I wasn't facing the death penalty, I had a few felony charges, a couple of misdemeanors for a crime I didn't commit. And some of his mental state brought me back because you're being, just me. And I want to talk about myself. Some of the things that stood out to me was when he was in his jail cell and he was going back and forth to himself. He was envisioning his daughters being in the cell, and he was talking to them, and he was going back and forth in the conversation. He was throwing things. He was confused. A lot of mental. You got to watch the movie. I don't want to tell you all the movie, but anyway, going through my injustice, and now I'm gonna go to tell you a little bit about me. I was accused of a crime I didn't commit. That crime was against my daughter. And, I picked my daughter up from her father's house, which she was with their family. They gave her back to me. When we got to our destination, I seen sores on my daughter's legs. I called my daughter's doctor up. I went to the store. I got some oatmeal bath and calamine lotion. I called a doctor. We had a doctor's appointment for the next morning and took her to the doctor. They told me that my daughter had impetigo. And my kid's family went straight to CPS and created this whole story about burns and all kinds of stuff. Me thinking like I didn't do anything wrong, ain't nobody gonna believe them, just didn't take it. I don't think at that time I even seen the depth of what was about to happen. I said, okay, I'm gonna take off of work, take care of my baby, you keep an eye on her, and I'll come back and get her. But when I came back, the police was waiting for me. They ended up taking emergency custody of my daughter right away. And I was, of course, arrested for abusing my daughter. I didn't even have my daughter back in my care for 12 hours, right? I remember thinking still, okay, I'm arrested and my daughter's gone. And I remember how I felt mentally. At the beginning, it still didn't hit me right away, right? It really didn't hit me. I cooperated with the police. I still didn't see what was about to happen. My life was going to be turned upside down. I don't know if it's healthy for me to be watching these type of movies, but I try to see the positive things in my life when going through it, because people are really going through this. I could not imagine being on death row inside of a cell for a crime you didn't commit, and how mentally damaged that could be. I know how it feels to be walking the earth. I know how it feels to be arrested, right? I know how it feels to be facing over 20 years for a crime you can commit. And I know how mentally messed up it was, like torture. And I was pregnant with my oldest son, and I started hemorrhaging. And I was about to lose him, so I had to give birth to him early, over top of going to trial, trying to fight for my life back. I had to go to another state to try to give birth to him, or they was going to take him as well. And it was difficult. It was difficult. I think I know for a while, I want to say I mentally checked out. Sometimes we can see people walking the earth. We might even laugh or bug or try to hide. But nobody had no clue what was going on in my head. Was I completely present? I was here, but was I mentally available? Was I mentally present? In some of my writings, I talk about, I felt like I was mentally captivated. I mean, when he was talking to himself and talking to the wall, I've done all of that. I was trying to make it make sense. It was just easy for me to say, man, do I have schizophrenia? Do I have something mentally wrong? Do I have another personality? Did I miss something? When someone is constantly telling you did something wrong and you have no clue, you're replaying the scenery, you're going back through the motions. It's messed up. It's messed up. And through watching the movie, I was lucky. I was one of the lucky ones. And I know that. I was able to get out. I was able to get out on bail. And I was able to fight for myself. So in the scene when he talks about, I haven't seen anybody, we're isolated from the real world. And his family, his parents were older, so they didn't get they lived in a whole nother country that was, our state that was a ways, right? I think Oklahoma or something. And so they didn't get to come out and see him much or anything. your family gives up on you, people that you thought were your friends turn their back on you. And, we go right through that. I may not did death row, but I went through all of that. And in my mind, I knew that if I didn't get out and fight for myself, I would have had no one fighting for me. And that's the part when I look at life different, because I worked so hard, fight so hard, but I know that if I don't do it, I didn't have anyone doing it for me. I knew that people were going to just move on. I will be just another story, another person that went through some type of injustice. And who knows if she's innocent or not? Who cares? And it was a lady on the movie, and she became his pen pal. And then she made it a point where she would, go see him. And then she realized that, man, this man could be innocent. This man could be innocent. And she was doing everything to fight for him. A total stranger. A total stranger. She was doing everything to fight for him. And, much as we love people, our family, our parents, I didn't see his mom standing up. I remember one scene he said, "Where is my family? They know I didn't do this." The woman that he loved stopped seeing him, didn't fight for him. And I remember feeling, if I don't get out of here, I almost know for a fact that my mom wouldn't have fought for me. I almost knew for a fact that my family wouldn't have fought for me. Would they come to see me? Maybe. I'm sure. But I remember being in the cell, because man, at this point, going through the emotions, I was so angry, guys. I don't even think, I just, how I like to explain it is, it didn't take much to make me upset or angry, going through the emotions. I didn't trust people. In order for me to be okay, I had to learn to isolate myself. I couldn't let everybody in. And I remember just even when I let people in, on how it could be damaging to me, their actions, a lot of toxic. When you're in a toxic situation and you're going through some things, you end up drawing in toxic people. And I remember just being angry, getting in fights, getting arrested again. I remember being arrested, violating probation, all kinds of stuff I've been through. And I remember being locked up. And at this time, I was in maximum security prison, Baylor's in Wilmington, Newcastle County, whatever they call it. And I had a cellie, and her name was Scrappy. I often think about her, just because we spent time together, in there. I got to know a little bit about her. She got to know a little bit about me. She was really open about, what she's done, and, just being in there. I think I was in there probably about a week or so before I even really started talking, going out. I just wanted to stay to myself. I went out when I had to, and I discovered that I was in maximum security at this point, right? So mentally, I didn't even really know. I knew I was incarcerated. I just didn't know, where I was at in there. And what triggered me to ask questions was when I seen behind, so when we go out to eat meals, chow, they call it, or whatever, or whatever. It was a glass. It was like a glass. I don't want to say wall or something, but I end up seeing this old lady, and she's walking back and forth, and she has an orange jumpsuit on. That's what triggered me to say, man, where am I at? Why is this old lady back there walking back and forth, right? And that's when the guard told me that I'm in maximum security prison and that lady was on death row. Right. I seen that she was able to have a TV in her cell and certain things of that nature. And I just wanted to go home. I just wanted to go home. And meeting so many different people, being in there with people, and if you've ever been incarcerated or anything, they'll say I've been accused of. Nobody says that, hey, I did this really, probably, but my Sally, at that time she was, she was tried, and and all that kind of good stuff. But a lot of people, if we're waiting for trial, will say, we've been accused of, so I met different women, and I met a young lady, and she did a crime, she was accused of a crime of passion and different things. So when I started talking to these people, seeing this going on death row, that's what caught my attention to ask the guard, where am I at? Because I'm in here with some people. I don't think I should be in here at this point. But I had to do a lot mentally, because people don't understand the mental state of what you go through in certain situations, right? And to some people, some things that I hear, oh, Iris, you got through it, get over it. Is it easy? Is it easy to get over it? And if you went through that, could you have gotten over it that easy? Because once your brain checks out, it's kind of hard to get through some things, you know what I'm saying? And it's hard, you know. I'm not real sure if watching these type of movies are good for me. But it do put something in me to make me want to keep talking, to make me want to be able to help other people, to make me want to be the voice for someone who doesn't have anybody voicing for them. Because people forget about you. It's just like death. People put RIP and everything, then life goes on, right? A lot of people, some people might forget that you even existed, and some people may not. But they're moving on, and that's how life is. I think sometimes at that point, it's hard to grasp when you're incarcerated. So I hear a lot of people say, oh, they incarcerated because that, this is happening. But really, it's hard because the people that you believe that love you and is supposed to be there for you, normally the visits stop, the letters stop, and you just move on. And when you're incarcerated for something you didn't do, it's hard. So this man was on death row. I don't even know if I could made it through that. I don't know if I could made it through that. And of course, I don't want to give away the end of the movie, but I just cried as evidence was coming out in the state of Texas. The people in charge of all that at that time kept putting denied on his appeal. No, watching all the evidence came out that this man was innocent. And how many people, I don't even want to know, and all the details in every state, because sometimes I get researching things of how many people who have been on death row, who have been incarcerated, given an enormous amount of time for crimes they didn't commit. And even ones that make it home, if they know how to process things and know how to properly heal from it. Because one of the things that people had asked me was, have you been through counseling? And most of us been through some sort of counseling, and counselor that has never been through nothing, who went to school, who doesn't understand the feelings. They can only tell you what they've learned inside of, their school, their platform. They don't know how it feels to be accused or convicted of a crime that they didn't commit. They don't know how that feels. Um, a lot of people don't. They just know what they believe or feel or believe the whole thing that society say. If people on Facebook or society said something happened and you did it, then it must be true. And people are convicted, or people are in trouble every day for something they didn't do. And justice is a hard conversation for people, and a lot of us don't like to fight it. We're afraid. Some people are afraid. Oh, I don't want them coming and attacking me. I don't want this to happen. And you just don't stand up. Some people just let things go and don't stand up, don't say anything. But anyway, going through watching these movies, and it triggers, it's certain things that triggers. And if you have been through something, it don't have to be similar to what I've been through. But a lot of us have triggers when you've mentally been broken down, right? And do you have those triggers is my question. What triggers you? And is it good? Is it a good or bad thing? Post your opinions about it. But during this movie last night, I had all types of triggers. I had all types of flashbacks. Normally, back, years yonder before I started healing and all that kind of stuff, if I would have some triggers, I will call my kids' family and raise absolute Cain, you know, um, probably do some things that I might not should have done from out of anger and all kinds of things. But I didn't do that, of course, right? But I wanted to come on and just share as we're going through life, have grace with people. And I'm trying, like, I think that's the hardest thing of having grace sometimes, because some people just take advantage of it. But going through this journey has taught me that everybody is not the same. And maybe some people did do what they said, what happened, but I know a lot of people may not have, right? And don't judge everybody because of what others say or what's going on. I learned that a lot of people, you will hear me say certain things because I don't want to just listen to what people are saying on social media. I like to get to know people for myself. And I think like this because if someone would take the time to get to know me, they would know who I was. And even the people that do take the time, they knew you, you'll be surprised of how many people that you spent time with, that you did things for, that you loved, that you cared for. When you in a situation like being accused of a crime you didn't commit, that will turn their back on you because they're afraid what others may say. Family, friends, all of that, right? Good morning, James. Hi, Murda. I just wanted to get on this morning, this Saturday morning. I couldn't sleep last night after watching that movie. Just very emotional, and going back, taking it back through my life and the other stories around of what happened to me. Guys, I just want to reiterate some things. At this time when this happened to me, I wasn't even 18 yet. I was 17. I think I was going on 18 or something. I was 17. And, they tried me as an adult. And sometimes what the justice system does is they like to make your charges look worse than what it is, so they'll charge you with the highest level charges, and then they'll sometimes charge you twice. In my case, I did have charges that was charged twice for, I see them a couple times for. Trial can take forever. So I want to give you, like a heads up. Like, I didn't even have a murder trial or anything like that, but it still took me a little over 2 years, I believe, to go to trial. And then if you don't have an attorney a real attorney that's going to fight for you. They normally call them public defenders, right? I call them public pretenders because they don't care nothing about you. And I don't even know if some of them care or not. Their caseload is crazy. So they're just trying to get you done and move to the next case. So in my case, I was asked to take a plea to 10 years incarceration and come home on probation. The first thing I thought of was, oh my God, I am not pleading to a 10-year charge. I'm not taking a plea deal for a crime I didn't commit. That's crazy, right? And I ended up not using the public defender, saying, hey, just don't even come back to court with me. I'm going to do this by myself. I'm scared is all outdoors at this point. At this point, I'm going to court. I'm standing up for myself, talking to myself. I have babies at this time. I have babies. And I remember going to trial and going in my kids' room, kissing them and telling them I love them, not knowing if I was going to come home, not knowing at all. And I remember people saying, oh, you're going to be fine. And, you didn't do anything wrong. You're going to be fine. You're going to go home. But it was a possibility that I wouldn't. It was a possibility that I wasn't going to come home. And lost my job at the time, had to go back to restaurant work and things. But I remember walking into that courtroom, and up before the court, I knew that I had to do research on the judge that I was going to go in front of. I will never forget. So, I'm going to say some names, and I'm saying these names because I remember them blindly, and this is a true story. So I just want to mention that I am not taking anything from anybody. This is my story. And that judge's name was Judge Graves. He was and one of the judges in the state of Delaware. And I remember going into court. I was not trying to go to jail. My only focus was at that time is I need to go home to my babies. I need to go home. I don't know how, but I need to go home. As I went in, hold on, let me go back a little bit. So before trial, of course, I sat into some of Judge Graves' trials, so I can kind of get to know him, see, what makes him tick, how he runs the courtroom and different things of that nature. And I noticed that he was giving away some very high sentences, but I also noticed that a lot of them sentences were from drugs of some sort. And, as a backstory, and I'm not going to go in and tell the story that I read or heard because that's not my place. But walking into trial, I'm in front of Judge Graves. And I remember being called up there. I was so scared, nervous, didn't know really, what to say, but tell the truth, right? Tell the truth. And people always say the truth shall set you free, but that's not the case all the time. Because through this journey, as you see, that got me in front of this judge, I was telling the truth. And I still was arrested. And I still went through a lot of things. And I remember him saying to me, and at this time, guys, I'm going to tell you, I know I talk a little bit about how I felt like God forgot about me. I gave up on my religion at some point, and I just felt like, man, what did I do to him? So even in the courtroom, I could not tell that he was with me at that trial. And no lawyer, no job really. And I just needed to go home. So when I get called up there, he could tell I was nervous, right? He could tell I was nervous. And he said, told me to look at him. He said, look at me. He says, I want you to pretend that no one's here, just me and you, and we're just going to have a conversation. We're just going to have a conversation. And he ended up asking me questions. I'm telling him what happened and going through the whole motions. And he looks up and he says, I don't believe this girl did anything to her baby. And then he explained to me that lots of people come to him and say they're innocent, and a lot of them are not, And he ended up dropping all of my charges, changing one of my felony charges to a misdemeanor. And it was called a Robinson plea at that time, right? A Robinson plea. And I ended up going home. I got a year of unsupervised probation. I had to deal with CFS or CPS, DFS. So I got to know a lot about them. But some things that I learned on the way was people can lie on you, guys. And, I didn't know that I had to have custody of my daughter. That's how they were able to get emergency custody so quickly. A lot of times in certain states, especially back then, when a man actually steps up to say something, they take it very seriously, especially a Black man. I tell people all the time, no matter what you're in, this happened to me not from a boy that I just met or a family I just met. This was someone we were young. I met her when I was 12 years old. We dated for years. I got to know his family. I called his mom my mom. I called his sisters and cousins my family. This was someone I was really, really close to. I ended up leaving my house at such a young age because I had my daughter at 15 and moving in with them. If, I'm trying to give you a visualize of who did this, why I was in this situation. As we gotten older, of course, we grew apart, and I broke up with him. And a week after I broke up with him, I'm being accused of hurting my child. Going through the process mentally stages, not just the court stages, I like, us to understand how narcissism works and how people that like control, going through some of the stages of things that were said to me from them, the family, how they were trying to get me in trouble, how they was trying to take my daughter from me. But at the same time, trying to keep me in the loop. His mom kept, which I found out later, she was the mastermind. Oh, you're my daughter. I don't know why he would do this to you. We know that you would never hurt your daughter. All kinds of things. So the family was very, trying to stay connected to me on those levels, right? I didn't know what was happening behind my back. I only could tell you what they were doing and dishing out to me. I remember my kid's father telling me, oh, if you just take me back, I can make all this go away. I can talk up for you, all these kind of things. And I'm thinking like, what? At this point. So in between me getting charges, being accused of a crime I didn't commit, I have this narcissistic kid's father who wants to come back, wants to be drawn back in. A whole lot of stuff going on. My daughter, when she was living with them, the things that I had to do, I had to get supervised visitations. And I want to talk a little bit about the beginning, because at some point at the beginning, being arrested for the charge, daughter being taken away, they have gotten emergency full custody of my daughter, or emergency custody. I hope I'm saying it right. But eventually a restraining order was taken where I could not see my daughter. I could have no contact with her at all. And I'm just babbling, guys. Trying not make 20 years of my life all day. But what he would do is my daughter would cry for me. And he would actually call my phone so I can hear her cry for me. And I remember these days vividly because I had a restraining order. If I would go over there, I would be arrested, right? It was times that I had went over, and I was in trouble. You know, you can't go there, or you will be arrested, or we will retain you for the weekend, and all this kind of stuff. So it was just so much that was being done to me in between all of the other court stuff, in between being pregnant, in between all kinds of things. I mean, I probably should have not have been in anybody's relationship at all, really, because I was damaged goods, seriously. You know, didn't have no trust. I think, at the beginning, even when me and my husband got together, I didn't trust. I didn't believe anything he says. I made life really, really hard. Um, but going through those motions of how someone can just play with your life like that. So my life wasn't just being played with by the justice system, judiciary system. It would also being played with by people that I thought were good with me. So I hear women all the time, young girls, oh, his family loves me. His family just loves me. They would never do that to me. They're not your family. When things get hard and it gets ugly, they don't care nothing about you. They're going to support their person, their child. And that's exactly, I find out later on about a lot of things, years. When I say later on, I mean years, about a lot of things on why certain things happen. Because at this time, I'm in the dark. I'm not understanding any of it at this point. I'm just trying, one, get through the court stuff, fight for my life, get home to my kids, not lose my kids again, learn how to control my anger, right? Because that took a long time. So sometimes people come into your life and they know what triggers you, and they can do stuff, and he knew that. Him and his family, they were a trigger for me. They were definitely a trigger for me. So at some point, I get supervised visits. And I'm gonna tell you how crazy this guy is, right? And I don't mind talking about this publicly. Again, this is my story, what happened to me inside. I cannot explain what happened on the outside, but I just can tell you what happened to me. But anyway, we get unsupervised visits, right? And this fool says, "Well, me and my mom works all the time, so he has a girlfriend." And she's on my page. If she hears this, maybe she'll remember some of it. I know she will. But I want her supervised, but my girlfriend has to be there. And I mean, he just thought this was the funniest thing. Like, this was the funniest thing. So, when I had my first supervised visit with his girlfriend, me and my daughter's trying to spend time together. At this point in time, me and this girl are not the best of friends. She is totally an enemy to me at this point. But she was doing little petty stuff. And, to her defense, men will sometimes tell women, new women that's coming into their lives dating, they will lie to them. And they will tell them things, and they tend, the women tend to believe them, right? So the perception and the things that they have said to her about me probably, probably was involved some way, right? And me and my daughter spending time together, and this girl is telling my daughter, you need to do this, go over here, pick this up, do this. My blood was boiling. I'm thinking, this girl, what is she up to? I'm trying to spend time and have this day with my child. She's playing mommy in front of me to my child. But that's what they did, because he had full custody, and he basically had her as a living mommy, pretty much. She was doing my daughter's hair, making sure my daughter's prepared for school, fixing her meals, and XYZ. That's the role that they had her play. It was a whole big scene. Again, going through that whole process of that, I remember going there, pulling up in their yard. And again, this is all documented. I have paperwork if I need to and all this kind of stuff. One day we were in the house, a visit with my daughter, and his family was in the house. His girlfriend was in the house. My car pulls up and we get out the car. I go visit my daughter. When it was time for me to leave, there's burning logs around my car. Call the police. They lied and said I ran over the burning logs. And I'm thinking, like, so if my car would have caught fire or blew up and I'm parked right in front of the house, dipwits, we're all going to be dead. It was crazy things that I've been through, for this guy or boy or whatever, and just remembering some of the things that led up to it. And I'm thinking, like, oh my God, how did I get into this? In order to heal from it, I had to start processing some of the things that I have done. And one of the things where, I always tell people, I don't know if you heard another video, is, the Lord talks about honoring your mother and your father. And my mom had heard things about this family and had, told me. I thought my mom was trying to keep us away because that's what they put in my head. I was young, I was naive. And they kept saying, oh, she's trying to keep you away and trying to keep us away from our grandbaby and this and that. That's what took me moving in. I left my mom's house thinking they're not like this. My mom said, they're going to take your child from you. This is what they do. And one of my regrets were not listening. In my defense, I'm still a teenager. I have a child by somebody. I want to have a family with, my kid's father. I don't want to be one of those type of people that you have a kid by somebody and it's over and, you're a single mom or all of those types of things. So I believed what him and his family told me, and I left my mom. That was one of my biggest regrets. I wish I would have asked more questions. I wish my mom, again, being raised by a broken woman is not easy. I just wish she knew how to communicate with me and explain things to me. And I'm in no way, shape, or form blaming this on my mom, but I just wish there were some things there that maybe I would have listened. Maybe I could have understood her, And my mom's way of doing it was, in order for her to talk to me that they're going to do this and that, she went to court and filed to take my child from me before this even happened. So we had to go through that whole process. She just went to court. She didn't explain to me about custody. She didn't tell me why she wanted to take custody. She didn't explain anything to me. So I'm thinking she's on an attack, It was a lot. So going out, they have custody. It took me almost 5 years to get my daughter back. Going through, because at this point, court is over. I'm home. I was still going through the emotional wrath of having to take a Robinson plea for a crime I didn't commit. But at that point, I just wanted to go home. I did not realize certain things. So I want to talk about that too, is they dropped all of those charges. Remember, I was faced over 20 years. I had these felony charges and these misdemeanors, and they had no evidence on me whatsoever. They ended up giving me a Robinson plea. They gave me 1 year of unsupervised probation. 1 year. If I was in my mind like I am now, I realized that I probably could have fought still and continued and beat that whole case because they had nothing, right? They had nothing. But part of me as a parent for my other children and wanted to be in a position to fight is, and I'm in survival mode at this time. I just need to get home to my kids. I had an infant at home. I just need to get home. So I'm not thinking that, okay, they don't have any evidence or they had something, because if they did, they wouldn't have gave me a Robinson plea with 1 year of unsupervised probation. They know they messed up. But when the state messes up, they're not going to go and say, I messed up. That I'm going to charge her with something, because clearly the words that came out of that judge's mouth was, I don't think this girl did anything to her daughter. All right. And they didn't want to see that. So I'm going back, fighting for my daughter now. I'm fighting for her. And it took me years. These people, they moved somewhere else. They had filed orders in other states trying to, they made up all types of stories, filing papers in other states trying to stop me from getting jurisdiction to get my daughter back. I filed papers for my daughter every 90 days for about 4 years. And sometimes I would go to court and they would say, we don't have jurisdiction. We don't have jurisdiction. We don't have jurisdiction. And finally, I went to court and I get my first court date. I want to say this too, because this was some more deceitful stuff. I get my court date. I'm going to court and I'm fighting to get her back, which was more important to me than anything in the world at this point. I was pregnant at the time with me and my husband's daughter. I end up having a stillbirth and I could not attend court. So I contact the courts, I contact the family. I'm not going to be able to come. I lost my baby, all kinds of things. But I knew dealing with this family that I had to keep records of everything. So guys, when you're dealing with a narcissistic family and people, you tend to get to know them a little bit. And I had to learn really, really fast. So everything that I've done, because I knew they were going to say that, oh, we couldn't get a hold of her. She never did anything for her daughter. I knew that all these things was coming to attack for me. I knew when we went back to court that they were going to say, she told us that we could have her. That's why she didn't show up for court. That's exactly what happened. So finally, I got to go through the motions all over again. Finally, I get another court date to go in to get my daughter back. I go to another court date. I go to get my daughter back, right? And the judge asked me, said, hey, why didn't you come to court the first time? Of course. And I told him, I said, well, I had a stillbirth. And I called the courts. I called them and told them that I was not able to attend, right? Then the judge had talked to the family. Nope, sorry, I said it backwards. The judge, they told the family told the judge, sorry, that, hey, she didn't come to court the last time because she told us that we can have her daughter. She don't want her back. So then that's when the judge came to me and said, hey, is this true? Why didn't you show up for court the last time? And I said, Your Honor, I had a stillbirth and I contacted them. I told them, and I contacted the courts. I had brought my baby's death certificate as proof that I did have a stillbirth. And I even printed out my phone bill to show what times I have called them to make them aware of the stillbirth. And the judge turned around and said, did you know this? And they just looked stupid in the face, right? Because they just lied, right? Guys, it's never a good thing when you lie to the judge, because now he can't believe everything that you say because you already lied. So that really helped me out a whole lot. Keeping the proper paperwork. They told the judge that they didn't know where I was. I barely had any communication with my daughter. Remind you, I've sent money. I have bought gifts, all kinds of stuff, and did for her. So I had saved receipts. I had to record conversations. It was so much I had to do to protect myself from these people. And once the judge seen everything, of course, my daughter was at an age where the family was kind of trying to turn her against me. And she had came to me, and I remember her saying to me, because of course, she doesn't want to be in the middle of having to choose her mom and her dad. She wants all of us to be together. You know what I'm saying? And I remember just telling my daughter to look at me. I said, look at me. Don't look at them. I said, I need you to go in the courtroom and I need you to tell them the truth. And I need you to tell them how you feel. I said, it's not going to hurt my feelings. It's not going to hurt, I don't know if it's going to hurt their feelings, but you can't think about that right now. You have to go in that courtroom. And when you talk to the judge, you got to tell the truth. You got to tell the truth. You just tell how you feel. And I promise you, I will not be mad at you. I promise you, I will not love you any different. And I remember these people remind you. They're sitting across from me. He's acting a big fool, a scene. If they take my daughter from me, I'm going to do this. I'm going to berserk. I'm going to do this. And I'm just staying calm. And I remember the judge bringing us back in. And he says, she wants to be with both of you. She wants to be with both of you. And I remember going through the process, CPS and all that, asking my daughter. And I remember, and at this time, my daughter was 2 when the incident happened, at the beginning, 1 or 2, going into 2 or something of that nature. I may be a little bit off on the age group, but it's, but my daughter had told them that my mom would never do this, would never hurt me. And I remember they telling me they could not use that in court because she was too young. She was too young. But why did you ask her? Why did you interview her? I remember being put in CPS room. So what they did is they took my daughter's sores and went through a microscope. So they looked way worse than what, it was way worse. And I remember them sitting me in the room for hours saying, why did you do this to your daughter? Was she that bad that you could do this to her? What type of person are you? I remember this woman, no care in the world, white lady. And I want to say her name so bad because I could never forget this lady's name. But I may mess up her last name, so I won't say it. But I remember her going through that whole CPS situation. It was torture, hours and hours of torture. And I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong with these people? What is wrong? At this time, still, I mentally checked out at that stage. Going back, getting my daughter back. I ended up getting my daughter back. They had to give my daughter back. I think it was February the 10th, 2006, I want to say. They delivered my daughter back. I'm thinking like, oh my God, I get to start over. I get to build the bond with my daughter, and everything's going to be good. Everything's going to be good. I'm thinking I can build a bond. Now I have to fight the system a little bit to clear my name, but I'm going to get my daughter back. Little did I know, it was like deja vu. When I tell you deja vu, remember at the beginning I told you when they gave me my daughter back, my daughter had sores between her legs. And I took her to the doctor the next morning and I was arrested for abusing my daughter. All right, February 10th. Got her back. I got her situated for bed. I woke up February the 11th. I woke her up a little early. I made a breakfast. I had the boys, first day of school. I'm so excited because this is her first day being home with me full time. I go into her room and there's discharge all over her bed. Her underwears are soaked with discharge. And I'm scared as heck, guys, because remember, she's not been in my care again for 24 hours yet, right? She's probably been in my care 12 to 14 hours at this point. And most of that was sleep, right? I'm scared. I'm so scared because, again, I have to be the one to take her to the doctors. And I know at this point, they're going to go right to CPS, to the courts, try to get custody of my baby again, and go through all this stuff. And the first thing I do, I lived in the state of Delaware at the time. The first thing I do, well, my daughter, let me tell you what my daughter said. My daughter said to me, call my mom. She would take my underwear, put it in a bag, call my mom. the first thing I did was call my kid's father's mom, and she lied to me. And I'm going to tell you why I know that she lied to me, because my daughter is not allergic to bar soap. All right. So this woman tells me, oh, she's allergic to bar soap. And this is what we go through. She used bar soap and all this kind of stuff. She's not allergic to bar soap. Okay. Get off the phone, get my daughter cleaned up. I don't even think I didn't take her to school or nothing. Like, I drove all the way to Maryland to my mom's house to had the underwear in the bag, showed it to my mom. I'm scared as I'm scared. I'm scared. I had to call out of work. All these things are happening. I have flashbacks rolling through my mind that, oh my God, this is happening. And my mom said, calm down. You have to take her right now, because they're going to blame this on you. They're going to blame this on you. And I left my mom's house, drove all the way back to Delaware to BB Hospital. And I took my daughter to the doctor, to the hospital. I remember this white lady, when she goes in the room, I showed her the underwear. She checked my daughter. She asked my daughter questions. She pulled me over to the side. At this point, I did call my kid's father and say, hey, I'm about to take her to the hospital. I don't know why I did that, but I did. And she pulls me out and she says, we have to test your daughter for STDs and different things. And she said, I gave her the paperwork too from the courts. I just got my daughter back last night. And she said, because I've never seen a grown woman in the 25 years I've been doing this lose this much body fluid. And I said, what are you saying to me? She says, we're going to run the test. I don't want to say anything yet until the test results come back. She says, but I'm almost certain your daughter has an STD. Remind you guys, at this point, my daughter's 6 years old. She's 6. And I'm thinking, like, how in the world did she get an STD? Or what is happening here? And I'm confused. I'm so confused. Again, this is a family that I knew. So I'm trying to figure this thing out. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm scared. But I had to hold my daughter's hand while they gave her a shot. And the lady said the shot can almost cure everything. And, after they did the test and all that kind of stuff, I had to hold her hand. Then the family comes bum rushing in. My kid's father and his mom. She did this to my daughter. She allowed someone to do this to my daughter. At the time, they're thinking that my boyfriend, which is now my husband, has done something. They don't know at this time my husband or my boyfriend is not in my home. Because the first thing I did when I knew that I was fighting for my daughter, I told him, he couldn't stay with me. I needed to, have my family. I couldn't have him in there. But my husband, he was younger. He's gotten some trouble for driving with suspended license. So he was actually incarcerated. They didn't know that, right? They didn't know that. So technically in the house, it's just me and my 2 boys in the house. I'm going to tell you what, the nurse at the hospital was a lifesaver. She got security to escort them out of the hospital. And she said she did not want to hear it. And she says, this didn't happen overnight. She said, your daughter had this for years. She said, thank you that you fought for your daughter and you got her back, because she could have been in a position to where she would have syphilis. She could have not had babies. She could have went blind. And I was I didn't know what to do or say. At this point, it wasn't about me healing or bonding anymore. It was like, I got to take care of my baby. I don't know what she's been through or how it happened. I know nothing. I don't know if you guys can, be in a situation where you know nothing. You know nothing. You don't know what happened in between the lines, And they still go to court. Again, this crazy family, they still file court papers trying to take my daughter back from me. Thank God for the nurse at BB Hospital at the time, because she was able to let the judge know that it was impossible for my daughter to catch an STD in my home in less than 24 hours. She explained to the judge that it takes 3 to 4 weeks sometimes for a grown person to come out with symptoms of that STD. And she also explained because of the amount of discharge that my daughter had, let her know that she had it for a very long time. And the first thing the family says, oh, test results are wrong. But after I got the treatment for my daughter no longer had that stinking discharge any longer. I can't imagine. I don't know, and I can't even talk. So guys, when I'm talking to you, this is me. This is what happened to me. I'm not trying to tell my daughter's story. I don't know what happened in between there. But that has to come, later on, I guess, whenever, she finds it in herself or whatever. But I'm gonna just tell you, because sometimes we are afraid to have these conversations because we're afraid of what people might say, think about you, or anything. I'm in a point in my life, I don't care what anyone thinks about me. When I stood up in that courtroom, when I was arrested, no one was there. They didn't know, people were moving on with their lives. They didn't have to go through the mental things that I had to go through. I remember going to counseling, and I remember my counselor kept asking me, this is one of the things. And she says, how old are you? And I kept telling her my age. How old are you? And I kept telling her my age. And I remember I asked her before I left, I said, why did you keep asking me how old I am? And she told me, Iris, I want you to get a calculator, and I want you to take this year and subtract it by your year that you were born. So I did. She said, what happened those last 3 years? I just busted out crying. I had no clue of where those 3 years went. And, she was able to calm me down and say, hey, it's okay. It's okay, because that's trauma. She said, sometimes when we're going through bad situations, we don't realize a birthday has passed. You just kept going. You were in survival mode. You had to go through the trial. You had to go through the things with your kids. You had to go to work to pay the bills. You had to fight for your life. It's still part of my brain that cannot put everything together. So even when I'm writing the books, I'm looking at paperwork. And that's why in my books, if people notice, I always put court papers in there, put receipts. I try to put receipts in there. And again, guys, I want to reiterate, I'm able to tell my story. This happened to me. And because I've been through it, right? Long as it's the truth, you can tell. The truth shall set us free. But I had to go through so much. So when people try to judge you, people don't, everybody go through something, but we don't all go through the same things or the same situations, right? We don't go through it. And people that I thought were my friends, that I thought knew me, I realized they didn't know me. They were never my friends. I kind of think in my life there, people, I don't remember someone that was truly, 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 truly my friend. I don't remember. People laugh and they smile in your face. We know you didn't do this. No one stood up there and said they didn't know that you didn't do this. Guys, if you were in that court situation, or if I was incarcerated and I was given the death penalty like this man in that movie I was telling y'all about, I almost know 99.99, no one would talk for me. No one would stand up for me. No one would fight for me. And I don't think that people even care, because, back in the day, even when you get through the situation, we were told to brush things under the rug. What happens in this house, stay in this house. It's the worst thing ever been said to anybody in the world. Oh, you can't go tell people that because it's nobody's business. Or you can't do this because you might hurt someone's feelings. I used to be scared to talk to people about what happened to me because I was afraid I was going to offend my kid's dad, his family, my daughter, my mom, whoever else, right? And I got to a place of healing to where I had to have a conversation with my kids. And I had to tell them, I'm not going to stop you from loving your dad, but it's time for me to share my story. It's time for me to help someone else. Do I care if people know these people and don't believe me? They possibly couldn't do that. I do not give 2 red cents. I don't care about their feelings. Am I doing this to hurt anyone? No. But one thing I do remember is that when I was hurting, they were happy. One thing that, plays in my mind, I dreamt, and I don't even want to say dream, these are more like nightmares. I remember certain situations where I was broken down and they were just in my face. It was like they were magnets and they were happy. They had custody of my daughter. They'd taken a lot from me. They had just drugged everything out of me. They told people, oh, she's crazy. She has mental health issues, all of these things. They would do things to take. I remember coming outside of my apartment. Now, he worked at this plant called Mount Air or something, and I lived in Maryland at the time. And he would get off work, drive from Shelbyville, Delaware to Maryland. And I remember him putting on my windshield, "Get AIDS, BITCH." I remember other times where he would be knocking on my door, begging for me to come back to him and have a whole girlfriend living in his house. And I'm thinking like, wow, this is crazy, right? This is crazy. And you just don't know what you're getting into when you are dating or talking to these people, especially when you come out of a teenage relationships. Sometimes our teenagers need people to talk to them. It's red flags. So, if you're any teens on my page, listen to your mom. Listen. Sometimes they see things. They might not can always reiterate or explain why, because my mom didn't. But try to listen and try to pay attention to red flags when people are telling you things, because these things are real. I can tell you these things because I lived it, right? I can tell you that I know for a fact that you need to get custody of your kids. I can tell you for a fact that if you come into a CPS situation, that you don't sign nothing, because if you sign something, that gives them the more flexibility to take your child from you, right? I can tell you that our justice system, like we know, I think we cover it up. It's not justice. They don't care nothing about you. Most of these people, a lot of the states, it's a lot of prejudice and everything, Virginia is one of the states, a lot of prejudice inside of this justice system here. Delaware is a lot of prejudice inside of that justice system. Texas is a lot of prejudice inside of that. I can name so many states, right? Just because, as you can see, because of what I've been through, I read a lot. And I just feel and, want to be covered with people just to be able to help them get through what they have to get through. I've been on here for a long time, guys, babbling. But I just wanted to share a piece today of my story of what happened to me, what makes me who I am today. I have reason to believe that people thought I would never talk about what I've been through. They never thought that they had to relive it. And some people like, oh, why is she hashing things up? And I even hear some people telling me when they want to come and write, I don't want to rehash anything. But I'm not rehashing anything for myself because I still have those nightmares. I still have triggers, right? I still replay certain scenes in my head, you know. I still raise, I still have that child that's in my life. I'm not rehashing anything. This is my life here. And, some people can put it away if they wasn't affected by it. If they feel like, hey, I'm not affected by it, so we can just squash this thing. But guys, I want to tell you something. It's easier to just turn your back on people. It's just easy. It's hard to fight for them. It's hard to stand up for them. It's hard to do the right thing. Sometimes it's just easy to do the wrong things. But going through this journey and healing from it was major for me. And I'm when I'm saying healing, my healing process is not going to be overnight. I'm going to go through the cycles. I have been. These 3 years have been amazing. But I'm still going to go through the cycles. All right. And being able to help other people go through it as well and heal from it, have a safe place to talk to, have someone that can understand and relate to them is a big thing. Because when I was going through counseling, I didn't trust a lot of the counselors, right? I kept going from this counselor to that counselor because someone was reading out of a book. They had no clue. They have never been on trial and facing 20 years. Like just, let's just be real with it. How can you tell me how to feel when you never went through anything? So now when I'm looking and going through counseling, I am thinking, I want to interview. I want to see I want to be with someone who's been through some things that can relate to me. I don't have to necessarily be my exact situation, but I want to know that you're not judging me. I want to know that you actually care about what I've been through and you're going to give me the right advice. I want to know that you're not reading out of a textbook, because that textbook is not made for people like me. And those of you that believe that those textbooks and this judiciary system is made for people like you, if one, you are a colored person altogether, if you are a Black woman or a Black man, even if you are just a minority, and let me tell you something else, and I don't even want to just say if you're Black, but white too. If you broke and you're white and people consider you beneath them, that justice system is not for you. They will throw you away and eat you alive. They do not care about you. I had to learn that everybody can't be up close and personal. I network a lot as an entrepreneur, and I can network with you. I can talk to you on the phone. People can invite me to places. It's very seldom, unless I have gained some close connection with you, that I'm going to eat at the dinner table with you. Not because I don't like you. I just have to get to know you. The people I ate at the dinner table with lied on me. They had me facing time. They took my daughter from me. They took a piece of her, right? So sometimes that's why I think we need to get to know people, because once we get to know a little bit about people, now you're going to have some crazy people that's going to take the information they know and your triggers and try to tap in that to hurt you. But you're going to have another set of people that are going to be understanding. So when they come to you, they're going to know how to come to you and how to come to you the correct way. Some people say, oh man, Iris is a B. Iris is this, because I will disconnect from you, point blank, period. I don't trust you. It's certain things that, even though we go through those bad cycles and things, we have to learn how to learn from them. So when we see those red flags, we can't keep walking towards the red flag. You have learned now that those red flags are damaging and can hurt you. So why would I go back there? So when I see red flags, I'm going to disconnect with you. You may not be a bad person, but I'm not going to stick around and find out, is what I'm saying to you. And God has been amazing to me through this whole healing journey, because it's some things that would have really triggered me, my anger, and all kinds of things. I felt like at one part of my life, when those triggers were happening, I'll get so angry. Let me explain to you when I say angry, my feelings. I could feel my blood pressure rising. I can feel my blood boiling. I can feel something happening to me that eventually it will cause me to disconnect, or people say blank out, or whatever you want to call it. Normally, if that were to happen, normally the police is being called, right? For me, on me. I had to learn how to control that. I remember the judge telling me, if you end up back in my courtroom again, I'm going to take the rest of your kids. So I had to learn certain things, and I put a lot of time into work. Work was my safe place. Work was, hey, I can disconnect from everything going on around me while I'm here. So some people used to ask me, how can you work these long hours? And then sometimes I felt like my now husband, felt like I wanted to be away from them. And, you know, and work was just that safe place for me. When I'm home, it was back to reality again. I could feel the pain again. At work, I could be numb for a moment, just a little bit. I could laugh a little bit. I don't know if anybody can resonate with me at all, but when I started, and God had gave me the vision, her story, her power, it represents every woman that has a story. And people have time, people just can't, other women, it's hard for them to connect with you. And we don't know why, right? We don't want to collaborate. We don't want to network. Sis is damaged, right? Sis, no one understands. You got a whole bunch of things flowing, right? And sometimes it just takes someone just taking the time to say, hey, this is how we're going to do things. This is what we need. Sometimes when sis is going through something and open up to you and say, hey, this is what I'm going through right now, and you have been through something similar, it's easy to say, you know what, I can't help you. I can't deal with it at this moment. It's much harder to say, sis, grab my hand. I've been through this. I can help you. You're safe with me. And that's the place where I'm at. It's like, I know that God didn't allow me to go through all this for no reason. You understand? Sometimes I question, why me? Why me? Why me? Guys, walking into 42, so as you can see, I was not even 18. I'm about to be 42. Still having these feelings, still processing, still healing. Waited so long, over 20 years, to be able to open those wounds. I always say a closed wound is not a healed wound. It hits different. That closed wound, when that scab comes off, it burns. But healing it, and as you see my tears rolling, it's a total different thing. It's something different. These are not tears of so much as pain. This is tears because I was able to help other people. And years ago, I didn't even think, I remember young girls, it was weird because it was like God was directing people to me, and they're telling me their story. I don't even know who they are, but their stories sound like mine. And I remember walking away, and my eyes were water as the girls are telling me what they're going through. And I remember saying, I can't help you with this. I can't hear. I can't listen to this. I have to go. I can't. I can't go through it. I can't. I can't. I remember coming home, beating myself up and said, oh my God, I could have helped her. I could have told her something. I could have gave her a hug. But the whole time she was telling me her story, I was replaying what happened to me. And I said, I need help. I need help. I need to know how to process and heal so I can help. But I'm just not strong enough. I'm not strong enough. I mean, so these are not tears. These are not sympathy tears. These are not tears of me wanting people to feel bad or sorry. These are tears of joy. These are tears of me processing of the stages of life that I've been through. But these are tears of my strength because I'm able to help other people. It's one thing being out there where somebody's fighting for you, but when they get through it, what happens next? What happens to your mind? The mind is a tricky thing, The mind is something you don't really have a lot of control over. Some people kill themselves, We just had an incident, here, and where a lady killed herself and her 3 kids. I don't know what she was going through. What do you go through? But the mind is, when that's gone, do you really have control? When you check out, who's there for you? Who is there to bring you back? Do you have anybody there for you? It's so easy to turn your back on somebody. I see a lot of people preaching on the timeline, a lot of Christian folk. And the crazy thing about it is, I know, I've been around some, and I watched you turn your back on people. I have watched you kick people. I don't know if you know that you're kicking them or not. And then I watch you get on and preach. And I'm thinking, how do that work? How? I don't understand it. It's just like the politician things. We have leaders that are hurting each other, that are hurting the community, that are ignorant. Even in the state, they care nothing about what's right, what's wrong. They just want a job. What is all of that? I be trying to figure this out. I can't, but only thing I can do personally is to be authentic in myself and to be able to help people and stand up for what I believe in and love on as many people as possible. One of the things that I went through this journey was a total stranger. Guys, I've never seen this lady again. I don't know if she's still alive. I mean, I wish that God would allow me to see this lady again. Let her know what she did for me that day. And I'm going to tell you this. And if people who had worked with me at the hospital, they know I give people hugs, right? And I always say a saying at all my shows, give somebody a hug today or this weekend because hugs saves lives. And I'm going to tell you, a hug saved me because going through the whole process with my kids, with my daughter in the system, there was a point where I was about to end my life. But I went to the store, I got some things. My kids are at daycare, school, some sort of another. And my at the time, my boyfriend, he was at work. And the lady must have felt some type of energy. She was by me in line. She leaves the store because I was in back of her. Honestly, it was weird. I was in back of her. She pays for her stuff. She leaves the store. And then she comes back into the store, and I'm walking out at this point, or Gray walk out, and she says to me, "Can I give you a hug? Can I give you a hug?" And at this moment, I just busted out crying. And she says, "I don't know what you're going through. I don't need to know what you're going through, but I could not get in my car and leave because he told me that you needed me." She says, "Baby, I want you to go home, and I want you to yell as loud as you can. And I want you to go to God." And she says, "I don't care if you go to him with anger, if you cuss, fuss, whatever you need to do." He said, "Come to him. Come to him." She says, "Sometimes people think that they can't talk to God in that manner. That's frowned upon." But she said, "Whatever you're about to do, he doesn't want you to do that." And she said, "I don't need to know what you're about to do." She said, "But you don't need to do that. You need to go straight to him. You need to yell at him. You need to tell him how you feel. And it's okay." And as she was talking to me, she hugged me even tighter. She said, "You understand what I'm saying? Whatever you're about to do, you don't do it. You go home." That lady probably saved my life that day. Probably saved my life that day. My kids were so small. They had no clue of what I was fighting. My now husband didn't have no clue. I didn't talk to him about it. You know, it was a lot. It was a lot. And I think, man, at 18, was my mind mentally prepared for this? Society considers you an adult, but you're not. It's certain things that you're just not prepared for. You're just not prepared for. I had to learn how to fight early. I had to learn how to defend myself. I had to learn how to speak up because a lot of us are silenced. I had to learn that being me was enough, right? I had to learn that it's certain people that are just not going to like me, and that's okay. I may not care for everybody either, but he's teaching me that even if they may not be the best people, but you know how it feels to be broken. Everybody hasn't healed like you have done. Everybody's not doing the work that you have done yet. And that person may not be there yet. So I still need you to love him. I still need you to love him. And I can tell you guys, that process is so hard because part of me be like, oh, guys, it's so hard to look at someone who tried to hurt you to say, "I love you anyway," just because he told me I had to. This is a stage of my life that is just connecting to me within the last couple of years, that I am accepting that responsibility, and I'm accepting what, that's who I have to be for myself. So some of these things, guys, we think that we're doing them for other people. You're not doing them for nobody else. You're doing it for yourself. Even coming into authorship, I heard, "Oh, she just got here. She just got here. She don't know what she's doing." But then people have been doing it for a while, they come to me and ask me questions and ask me for advice on how I did certain things. I'm a researcher, guys. So if I'm passionate about something or purposeful, I'm going to research it and I'm going to kill it. All right. And because of some of my past, because remember, I told you I was in survival mode. Work was my safe place. You understand? So my business is my work. So when I am in it. I'm in it. And I'm going to kill it every time. And it looks easy to me. You know, I'm not going to say I had a hard time at all. A lot of it was just easy. So when I'm doing stuff, it's just coming out just like this, like this, like this, like this. And people say, how are you doing that? I have no clue. I have no clue, honestly, but God, right? It's because of what was already installed for me, because again, that was my safe place. I can have tunnel vision, and I can see what I want to do, and I can do it. And if I say, and if it's something that is purposeful and that I enjoy doing, I'm going to do it, right? I'm going to kill it. And I was supposed to do it. And on my first visionary project called Injustice Movement, Injustice Volume 1. That book means a lot to me, and I'm going to tell you why, because I was writing my book, Injustice My Story, and in the process of me writing it was, I wanted to heal. I mean, I got to a place where this was nothing, no attack on nobody or nothing. I wanted to heal. And I got on social media like I'm doing now, and I told pieces of my story, and people started reaching out to me. And I said, well, this is not just about me, is it? So I stopped writing my solo book, and I wrote Injustice Volume 1. And I had people come with me in that book to write their stories. And I did a conference, you know, my first conference. Again, I never did a conference before until this conference. I was raised by a woman who was broken, who, you know, over the years we kept saying, you know, get counseling or, you know, all kinds of things. But again, she was brought up in that era where I've been living with this all my life. I don't need to, you know, do all that, which is my mom, guys. So I got my mom's hair done. I had the MUA waiting there to the conference for her. We bring her down to Virginia, and she's got front row seat to this conference, and she gets to hear the authors that were there, their stories, and get through the whole movement. You know, we have live performances, music, poetry. We had all types of stuff there. All meals was catered, beautiful, right there on a 88,000 acre golf course. Beautiful Williamsburg, Virginia. And when I took my mom home that Monday, that next week, I think a week and a half, I get a FedEx envelope in the mail. My mom writes her story. My mom writes her story. And my mom has been doing the work. She's been going to see therapy and all kinds of things my mom is doing to make herself better, you know. And I remember getting on my knees and I cried when now I had to type the whole story up. So guys, I don't know if you ever been through something like this, but I knew pieces of my mom's story. I didn't know a lot of the details. But she wrote the story. I had to type it up. So it was almost like reliving. I mean, it was like me living her story. I could almost visualize things that were happening. And I got on my knees and I said, God, if this was why this was supposed to happen, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. You know, who would have known what I've been through was going to trickle down for me helping one of the most amazing women, the center of my life, you know. And have things been perfect? No. My mom was a teen mom, just like I'm a teen mom. And, you know, kids nowadays would turn their back, but I never turned my back on her. And, you know, we just go through what we go through. But if that was it, I was okay with it. I was terribly okay with it. And, you know, I just prayed and thanked him. I had no clue that was going to happen. So my mom is in Injustice Volume 2. And the name of her chapter is called The Monster in the Room. And that book means that series means so much to me. I do a series every year for that reason, because after we process and we go through injustice, even if we get off or get out of jail, get out from incarceration, we still have, I got to go get my hair done. We still have to learn how to heal from it. So guys, I am so thankful, and I'm getting on here a little bit today, talking to you guys. Share some comments if you could relate or anything, or if you have felt some of the feelings that I have felt. But I'm thankful for what God has done for me, and I'm thankful to be able to help other people through their journey of becoming an author, processing their healing, and giving them a safe place. It means the world to me. And some things is just, hey, we don't understand it all while we go through it, but it has to happen, right? And whatever you're going through, whatever your story is, it needs to be heard. Her story, her power. Right now, we are looking for 100 beautiful women, 80 more beautiful women that have a story, have power, have elevated, have started their healing journey, and who are doing amazing things and impacting other people. We have our media spotlight package. If you want to purchase, you can go on iris-wright.com. We have our new book, children's book, coming out called Being Me is Enough. Being Me is Enough. You can also be in pre-sale, so you can also go to my website and purchase that as well. We'll have our conference soon. But guys, whatever your story is, do not be afraid to tell it. Don't be afraid to help other people. Most importantly, work on yourself if you have to, love others, have grace. And if you see anybody this weekend that need a hug, please give them a hug and let them know that God do love them. All right? Have a good day.
Thanks for tuning into Real Talk with Iris, with your host, Iris Wright, the talk show dedicated to making our communities better, building relationships, networking, and supporting small businesses. Join us next week as we discuss new and creative ideas to improve our neighborhoods and communities. We hope you were motivated, inspired, and encouraged with today's segment. So until next time, make today great from your friends at Real Talk with Iris and your host, Iris Wright.